Welcome to another deep dive. You guys sent us a whole bunch of stuff on Poonawalla Fincorp Ltd,
It's a
listed on those Indian stock exchanges.
Yeah.
So we've got
toy bit.
board meeting announcements, we've got in-depth financial reports,
Mm.
investor presentations, we've even got an auditor certificate on their secured debt.
A lot to unpack here.
There really is. So our goal today, cut through all that noise and help you really understand how this company's doing.
Yeah, these documents, they can be pretty intense, I know.
Oh, it's a little bit.
But they really do give us a good look inside.
Yeah.
Poonawalla Fincorp, their financial health, strategic direction. So let's try to take these numbers apart
Okay.
and see what they tell us about the company's future.
So where do we even begin with all this?
Well, we got to start with understanding what kind of company this is, right?
Yes.
So Poonawalla Fincorp, this is a non-banking financial company,
Okay.
or NBFC for short.
Got it.
And they're operating all across India.
So big company.
Yeah, and what's interesting is the variety of financial products they're offering.
Okay.
Like, we're talking personal loans, business loans, loans against property,
Oh, wow.
you name it.
Yeah.
Feels like they're trying to meet everybody's financial needs.
So they're trying to be that one-stop shop
Right, exactly.
for all your financial needs. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
So what's their strategy? Are they like old school traditional banking? Or are they embracing the digital age?
Well, I was looking through their investor presentation,
Okay.
and they're really pushing this idea of being customer-centric
Okay.
and digitally driven. So it sounds like they're trying to find that sweet spot.
Yeah.
Mixing that personal touch that you get from traditional banking with the convenience and accessibility
Right.
that technology brings.
Interesting. So they're kind of adapting to how we all manage money today.
For sure.
Now, am I looking at their financials here? And one thing that really pops out at me is this huge growth in their assets under management, the AUM, 40% year-over-year growth, reaching over 28,396 crore in the second quarter of 2024.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to be a good thing, right?
Oh, absolutely. That kind of growth is pretty impressive. But here's where things get interesting. They've actually made the choice to slow down the growth.
Okay.
In their small ticket personal loan segment, the STPL. Seems like they're really focusing on building a sustainable business.
Yeah.
One that's profitable rather than just expanding super fast.
So they're being careful, making sure their foundation is strong.
Exactly.
Okay, makes sense. But I'm looking at their profit after tax. It's dipped down to 471 crore.
Yeah.
Should we be worried about that?
I don't think so, not necessarily. Okay. This dip is mostly because of two one-time things.
Okay.
First, they put Q2 Core into operating expenses to help with future growth stuff.
Okay, so investing in the future.
Right, like getting better equipment, training people to be more efficient later on.
Though it'll pay off in the long run.
Exactly. Second, they've put aside a big chunk of change, 666 crore, to cover potential losses in that STPL portfolio.
Oh, wow.
Might seem like a hit right now, but it shows they're thinking ahead.
Yeah.
Managing risk carefully, they're playing it safe.
That's a lot of money set aside. So they're not just going for those big profits. They're being cautious, trying to, protect themselves, especially with how unpredictable things are these days.
Exactly. It's like they're building a safety net to make sure they're stable in the long term. It shows they're really committed to keeping their assets strong. Right. Which is super important for any financial company.
Okay, that makes sense. But speaking of those assets, I noticed their gross non-performing assets, the GNPAs, are up a bit to 2.10%.
Yeah.
So for anyone who's not familiar with that term, GNPAs, those are basically loans that might not get paid back.
Right.
Is this something we should be worried about?
Well, this increase, it's tied to those changes they made to their STPL segment.
Okay.
They're being more conservative when they're looking at risk.
Yeah.
So they're putting more loans into that potentially problematic category.
Okay.
It's like they're making the rules stricter for who can get a loan in the first place.
Right, to reduce the risk of those defaults.
Exactly.
So it's not necessarily a bad sign. It's more like they're being extra careful.
Right. And remember, their net NPA, which takes those potential losses into account, that stayed steady at 0.33%.
Okay.
And what's even better, their provision coverage ratio, that's the percentage of bad loans they've got money set aside for, that jumped way up from 52.53% to 84.47%.
Wow. Okay, so they're really on top of this risk management stuff.
They are.
That's good to know.
Yeah. Very proactive.
But let's move on to something a bit more, future focused.
Sure.
I was looking at their investor presentation, and they talk about this vision
Yeah.
of becoming the most trusted financial services brand.
I saw that.
How are they actually going to achieve that?
Well, they've got some interesting plans. They're expanding what they offer, launching new products.
Like what?
Things like shopkeeper loans, education loans,
Okay.
even financing for used commercial vehicles.
Wow, okay.
Seems like they're trying to cater to a wider range of needs.
Right, trying to get new customers and build those relationships with their existing ones.
Exactly, giving people what they need as their financial lives change.
Yeah.
And to make all these solutions easier to get, they're going for what they call a phygital distribution model. It's a mix of those brick-and-mortar branches
Okay.
with digital stuff like their website, social media, and a mobile app.
So they're meeting the customer wherever they are, whether it's online or in person.
Exactly. It's about convenience and flexibility, key things in our busy world.
Hmm.
But it's not just about reaching more people. They're also building a strong base internally.
What do you mean?
Well, they're putting a lot of resources into their collection infrastructure,
Okay.
which is, essential for making sure those loans get repaid, keeping their whole loan portfolio healthy. It's often overlooked, but it's vital for sustainable growth.
So expanding products, making them accessible in different ways,
Right.
really emphasizing that risk management.
Mhm.
It gives a pretty complete picture of what they're doing.
It does. And it tells me they're not just looking for quick wins. They're building something that's going to last.
Okay, so let's talk about those long-term ambitions. What are they aiming for in the next few years?
Well, get this. Their goal is to increase their assets under management by 5 to 6 times
5 to 6 times.
over the next 5 years. It's a big goal.
That's huge.
But they're backing it up with some serious investments, particularly in technology.
That's ambitious. Tell me more about those technology investments. What are they focusing on?
Well, one of their big things is this AI-led digital strategy.
Oh, okay.
They think this is going to make everything run smoother, improve the experience for their customers,
Yeah.
and ultimately drive growth that's sustainable. It's about making things more efficient and user-friendly, all thanks to technology.
So they're using AI strategically, not just because it's trendy.
Right. They want to use it to improve both their internal processes and what the customer experiences.
That makes sense. They're really investing in the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're looking for ways to stay ahead of the game in a financial world that's changing so quickly.
It's really interesting to see how they're combining that traditional financial knowledge with this cutting-edge technology.
It's a powerful mix, and it puts them in a good position to handle the challenges and opportunities that are coming up in the Indian financial market. But we can't forget about the human side of things.
Right. We can't just talk about numbers and technology all day. What about their employees? How are they creating a positive and productive work environment?
Well, their investor presentation actually talks about how committed they are to attracting and keeping top talent.
Okay.
They're trying to create a culture of learning and development,
Hmm.
and they're focusing on building a diverse and inclusive workplace.
That's great to hear. The company is only as good as its people, right?
Exactly. And it goes back to their whole vision of being the most trusted brand. Trust is built on relationships with customers and with employees.
I like that. They're not just focused on the financial side, they're thinking about the human side too. But let's change gears a bit and talk about their commitment to environmental, social, and governance factors, or ESG. How are they incorporating sustainability into how they do business?
ESG is a big deal for them and for investors in general. Their investor presentation highlights their efforts in things like renewable energy, financial inclusion, and ethical governance.
Okay.
They clearly know that sustainability isn't just a nice bonus anymore. It's something every responsible business needs to prioritize.
Absolutely. Investors are looking for companies that share their values, and ESG is a big part of that. It's about doing good and doing well at the same time.
Exactly. And Poonawalla Fincorp seems to understand that. They're making ESG principles part of their operations and are openly sharing their progress.
This has been incredibly insightful. We've gotten a really good overview of Poonawalla Fincorp, their financials, their growth plans, and their commitment to both their people and the planet.
It's been great going through these documents with you.
Yeah.
But remember, this is just the start of our deep dive. We still have a lot more to explore, like who they're competing with and the challenges they might face in the future.
Exactly. Stay tuned as we continue this deep dive and go even deeper into Poonawalla Fincorp.
It's really interesting, how ambitious they are.
Yeah.
But they're also being cautious.
Right.
It's not just about setting those big growth targets. It's about managing the risk, investing in the right things, making sure they've got a strong foundation.
Yeah, it feels like they're really in it for the long haul,
Exactly.
building a business that's meant to last. And I'm really fascinated by this whole idea of using technology
Yeah.
to make their internal stuff work better.
And to improve the customer experience.
You nailed it. Tech can be a powerful tool, but it's the people who drive innovation and build that trust with customers.
That's so true. And speaking of trust, their commitment to ethics and transparency, that's something you don't see every day.
Right.
Those values are baked into everything they do. And that's got to resonate with investors and customers.
Definitely. Trust is so important, especially when you're dealing with finances.
For sure.
And it seems that Poonawalla Fincorp gets that. But let's step back for a second and look at the bigger picture. India's economy, it's growing like crazy.
Yeah.
And that means there's a huge demand for financial services. How is Poonawalla Fincorp taking advantage of this growth?
They're definitely making moves to get a bigger piece of that pie, that's for sure.
Okay.
Expanding it to new areas, focusing on that phygital approach,
Right.
blending physical branches with a strong online presence.
Yeah.
It all shows they want to be a big player in the Indian financial scene.
It's like they're setting themselves up for success in a market that's just full of opportunity. Right, exactly. But of course, when things are growing, that attracts competition.
Of course.
How are they setting themselves apart?
Well, remember, they're laser focused on building a brand that people trust, a brand that puts the customer first. It's not just about selling products. It's about building those relationships,
Right.
becoming a partner that people can rely on for their financial journey.
That makes a lot of sense. When you've got so many choices, trust and loyalty are what make you stand out.
Absolutely.
But let's get back to those new products they're launching.
Okay.
I'm really curious about those shopkeeper loans. It seems like it's tailored for all those entrepreneurs in India.
It's a really interesting idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
It shows how they're finding those niche markets and creating products that meet specific needs.
Yeah.
I'll be watching closely to see how those loans do.
Right.
You could be a real game changer for small businesses across India.
Speaking of game changers, that AI-led digital strategy, do you think it's going to live up to the hype?
Well, we'll have to wait and see. But they're putting a lot of faith in AI. It shows they're serious about using it to its full potential.
Yeah.
If they can pull it off, it could give them a big advantage in terms of speed, efficiency, and personalized service.
It's exciting to think about what they could achieve.
It is.
But let's not forget about the potential downsides.
Right.
What are some challenges Poonawalla Fincorp might run into as they go for these ambitious goals?
Well, you always got to consider the economy. If India's growth slows down, that could affect their business, especially as they're expanding into new areas.
True. They're not operating in a bubble.
Nope.
What about the competition? India's financial sector is pretty packed.
Well, it's heating up for sure.
Yeah.
They're not just up against traditional banks, but also those fintech startups.
Yeah, those startups are shaking things up.
They are. Poonawalla Fincorp is going to have to stay innovative and adapt to keep up.
And we can't forget about regulations.
No.
The rules in India's financial world are always changing. How do you think that'll affect them?
Navigating those regulations, that's going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
They'll need to be on their toes, making sure they comply with the new rules. But it's not just about ticking boxes. It's also about adapting to what the regulators expect.
Right.
They're putting more and more emphasis on financial inclusion and protecting consumers.
So they need to find a way to grow and innovate while also following the rules and building trust with the regulators.
That's the balancing act, isn't it?
It is.
But it's something every financial institution has to do if they want to be successful in the long run. And remember, it's not just about external challenges. There are internal risks, too.
Like what?
Well, think about how they manage that growing loan portfolio.
Okay.
That's going to be crucial.
Right. We can't forget about their collection infrastructure and how well they handle risk as their loan book gets bigger.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot between growth and stability.
Well, let's bring it back to you, the listener. We've talked about a lot, their financials, their growth strategy, how they manage risk, even their ESG commitments.
It's been a lot.
What stood out to you? What would you want to learn more about?
For me, it's got to be how they're embracing technology,
Yeah.
especially that AI-led digital strategy. I want to see how that works in practice, how it affects their efficiency, their customer experience, and, of course, their bottom line.
I agree. Their use of technology is something to watch.
Definitely.
But I'm also interested in how they're expanding their products, their shopkeeper loans in particular.
Yeah,
It's a bold move, and if they can make it work, it could really pay off.
we could.
And don't forget the people.
Right, the human element.
How they're building a great place to work and attracting those top talents. That could be a big advantage in the long run.
It could.
So before we wrap up, I want to leave you with something to think about.
Okay, shoot.
What do you think are the biggest risks and the biggest opportunities for Poonawalla Fincorp as they navigate this Indian financial market?
That's a good question. It reminds us that even though we've learned a lot from these documents, there's always more to discover. The financial world is always changing.
It is.
And companies like Poonawalla Fincorp need to be flexible and forward-thinking to stay ahead.
And that's what makes this deep dive so interesting.
Right.
It's not just about understanding the numbers. It's about the bigger picture, the trends, the challenges, the opportunities that shape the world of finance.
The whole landscape.
But enough philosophy for now. Let's get back to Poonawalla Fincorp.
Back to the numbers.
Excellent. There's still so much to explore. Okay, so we've talked about their tech and how they're growing, but what about like the actual lending part? Are they just using those old credit scores, or are they trying new things to figure out the risk?
Well, that's what's so cool here.
Okay.
Poonawalla Fincorp, they're not just stuck on those old credit scores.
Yeah.
They're looking at all sorts of data,
Okay.
using fancy analytics to get a much better understanding of who they're lending to. It's like putting a puzzle together. Every little piece of information helps them make smarter decisions.
So it's not just about them being safe, it's also about giving more people a chance to get credit right.
Exactly. People who might have been turned away before because of those old systems,
Yeah.
they're finding ways to say yes to more people who deserve it.
Okay, so zoom out for a minute with me. India's economy is on fire right now, and everyone needs financial services. How is Poonawalla Fincorp going to ride this wave?
They're all about grabbing that market share.
Okay.
New products, that phygital model.
Right.
They're hungry for a bigger piece of the pie.
They sound like they're going to be a big deal in India's financial world.
I think so.
But more growth means more competition, right? How do they stand out in such a crowded market?
Remember their vision to be the most trusted brand out there. That's what sets them apart.
Okay.
They're not just about transactions. They want to build real relationships with their customers.
Yeah.
Be that trusted partner for the long haul.
That makes sense. In a market with so many choices, trust and loyalty, that's what keeps people coming back.
Exactly. And being digital first gives them an edge too.
Right.
They can offer those convenient personalized services that people expect these days.
So they've got the plan. They're all about the customer, and they're using technology to their advantage. But there's always risks, right? What are some challenges they might face down the road?
Well, the economy is always a wild card.
Of course.
If India's growth slows down, that could impact their business, especially with all those ambitious goals.
True. They can't control everything.
Nope.
And what about all those other companies trying to get ahead?
Competition is tough, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
They're up against the big banks and those scrappy fintech startups.
Those startups are changing the game.
They are. Poonawalla Fincorp needs to stay sharp and adapt to keep up.
And don't forget about all those regulations.
Oh yeah, those are always changing.
India's financial rules are constantly evolving.
They are. It's a challenge for sure.
How do you think they'll handle it?
Well, they have to be on top of it, making sure they're following the rules.
Right.
But it's also about understanding what the regulators want. They're really focusing on things like financial inclusion, making sure everyone has access, and protecting consumers.
So it's like walking a tightrope. They need to grow and innovate, but also follow the rules and build trust with the regulators.
It's a balancing act, for sure. But it's what any successful financial company has to do.
So it's a complicated world full of opportunities and challenges.
It is.
But it sounds like Poonawalla Fincorp is ready for it.
I think they're being strategic, using data to make decisions, investing in the right places, building a solid base for the future. We can't predict the future, but they're definitely a company to keep an eye on.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into Poonawalla Fincorp.
Wow, that went by fast.
It did. We talked about their financials, how they're growing, how they handle risk, and their vision for what's next.
It's been a real journey.
And to our listener, this is just the beginning for you.
Right. Keep exploring.
Don't stop here. Keep digging, keep asking those questions, and keep learning.
That's what it's all about.
That's what the deep dive is for, to give you the tools to figure things out for yourself.
Yes.
To become a more informed and engaged participant in the world.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
Absolutely. See you next time.